The sky over Seoul burned red that morning. Minho stood on the roof of the military base and watched the strange ships appear. They came without warning, massive and dark against the sunrise. Hundreds of them. They hung in the air like giant metal birds, silent and waiting. His radio crackled to life. Voices shouted in panic. Bases across the world were reporting the same thing. The ships were everywhere: Tokyo, New York, London, Moscow. Every major city had them overhead. Minho was a colonel in the army. He had fought in wars before. He had seen men die. But this was different. His hand shook as he grabbed the radio. Then the ships opened fire. Blue lights shot down from the sky. They hit the ground like thunder. Buildings exploded. The earth shook. Minho was thrown backward as the base erupted in flames. Men screamed. Metal twisted. Everything turned to chaos in seconds. Across the city, Seong was walking to his engineering class when the first blast hit. He was 19 years old, just a student. The explosion threw him to the ground. His ears rang. When he looked up, half the university was gone. Fire consumed everything. He ran home. His legs felt weak. Smoke filled the air. People were screaming and running everywhere. Cars crashed into each other. The city was falling apart around him. When Seong reached his apartment building, it was rubble. Just broken concrete and twisted metal. He dug through the debris with his bare hands. His fingers bled. He called for his mother, his father, his little sister. No one answered. They were gone. All of them. He sat in the ruins and cried. At a research facility outside the city, Dr. Ji-won watched the attack on the news. She was a scientist who studied space and stars. She had always believed aliens might exist, but not like this. Not as destroyers. The facility had not been hit yet. It was too small, too far from the city. Ji-won stared at the screen, showing destruction everywhere. Millions were dying. The world was ending. Her assistant ran into the lab. A small alien craft had crashed nearby. It must have been shot down by a desperate fighter pilot. Without thinking, Ji-won grabbed her equipment and rushed outside. If they could study it, maybe they could understand these attackers. The crashed ship was small, the size of a car. It was made of strange black metal that seemed to absorb light. Ji-won carefully approached it. Inside were dead aliens, their bodies broken. She felt sick but forced herself to look. She took samples of everything. The metal, the technology, the weapons. This might be humanity's only chance. High above Earth, Captain Hyun flew his fighter jet toward the alien ships. He was 28 and one of the best pilots in the military. His squadron followed him. 12 jets against hundreds of alien ships. The odds were impossible. They fired missiles. The weapons exploded against the alien ships but did nothing. Some kind of invisible shield protected them. The aliens fired back. Blue plasma bolts cut through the air. Jets exploded left and right. Hyun watched his friends die one by one. He pulled his jet into a steep dive, barely avoiding the plasma fire. His radio filled with screams and static. Within minutes, only 3 jets remained from his squadron of 12. They had not even scratched the enemy. Hyun felt fear for the first time in his life. Real cold fear. The attack lasted 3 days. The aliens hit every military base, every government building, every center of power. They destroyed armies before they could fight back. Nuclear weapons were launched in desperation. The missiles could not break through the alien shields. Cities burned. Billions of people fled into the countryside. Governments collapsed. Communication networks went dark. The world descended into chaos and terror. On the 4th day, the aliens sent a message. It appeared on every screen, every device that still worked. A tall creature with gray skin and black eyes spoke in perfect human languages. Its name was High Commander Threx. It said, Earth now belonged to the Vrinthian Empire. Humanity could surrender and serve or resist and die. The choice was simple. Most governments tried to surrender. Some hoped for mercy, but the aliens showed none. They took control of every city. Humans were forced into camps. Those who resisted were killed immediately, but not everyone gave up. In a hidden bunker deep underground, survivors gathered. Minho had made it there with a few dozen soldiers. Ambassador Yuna Kim was there too. She had been at the United Nations when the attack began. She was 51 years old and had spent her life trying to create peace. Now peace was impossible. Dr. Ji-won arrived with her research. She showed them the alien technology she had recovered. The metal was incredibly strong. The weapons used a type of energy humans had never seen before. But there were patterns. Things she could study, maybe even copy. Minho listened carefully. His face was hard. He had lost most of his men in the first attack. But his eyes still burned with determination. He stood up and addressed the room. His voice was steady and strong. They could not fight the aliens in open battle. Traditional warfare had failed completely. But there were other ways to fight. Guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, sabotage. Make every day cost the aliens dearly. Never let them feel safe. Never surrender. Some people in the bunker argued it was hopeless. The aliens were too strong. Humanity should accept its fate and survive as servants, but others refused. Sung was there. He had lost everything. His family was dead. His home was destroyed. He had nothing left except anger and the will to fight. He volunteered immediately. Hyun was there too. He had barely survived the aerial battles. Most of his squadron was gone. But he would not quit. He knew how to fly. He knew how to fight. If there was a way to hurt the aliens, he would find it. Ambassador Yuna spoke last. She was tired and her heart was heavy. She had tried diplomacy. She had tried to contact the aliens peacefully. They had ignored every attempt. They saw humans as nothing more than insects to be crushed. But she would not let humanity die quietly. She would use her connections, her knowledge, her skills to help organize the resistance, to protect civilians, to keep hope alive even in the darkest times. The group made a pact that night. They would form the Earth Defense Coalition. They would fight from the shadows. They would never stop resisting. Even if it took years, even if most of them died, they would make the aliens regret ever coming to Earth. As they left the bunker to begin their missions, Minho looked back at the survivors. These were ordinary people forced to become warriors, students, scientists, pilots, diplomats. None of them had asked for this war. But they would fight it anyway, because the alternative was extinction. Above them, the alien ships patrolled the skies. The Vrinthians thought Earth was conquered. They thought the war was over. They had won easily, just as they had conquered 47 other worlds before. But they did not understand humans. They did not know about human stubbornness, about human rage, about the refusal to accept defeat even when defeat seemed certain. The Vrinthians were about to learn a painful lesson. Earth was not conquered. The war had just begun, and humanity would show them that being outgunned did not mean being beaten. In the ruins of Seoul, in the ashes of Tokyo, in the rubble of New York, the resistance began to form. Small groups, hidden cells, desperate people with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The message spread through secret channels, scratched on walls, whispered in the dark, passed from person to person. We will not surrender. We will not submit. We will survive and we will make them pay. 6 months had passed since the invasion. Earth looked like a different planet now. The aliens controlled every major city. Their ships patrolled the skies day and night. Humans lived in fear, hiding in camps or ruins. But beneath the surface, something was changing. Minho stood in a tunnel deep underground. Miles of passages connected resistance bases across the country. Survivors had dug them by hand using stolen tools and pure determination. These tunnels were now their highways, their supply routes, their lifelines. He studied a map on the wall. Red marks showed alien positions. Blue marks showed human bases. The aliens thought they had won. They thought humans were defeated and broken. That was their mistake. A young man approached. It was Seung. He looked different now. Thinner. Harder. His eyes had lost their youthful innocence. War had aged him beyond his 19 years. Seung reported that his team was ready. Tonight they would hit an alien supply depot on the edge of the city. Minho nodded. These small raids were teaching them valuable lessons. How the aliens moved. How they reacted. Where they were weak. The resistance had learned to fight differently now. No more big battles. No more standing armies. They struck fast and disappeared like ghosts. They used the ruins of cities as cover. They attacked at night when the aliens struggled to see. Every small victory mattered. Every stolen weapon. Every destroyed supply truck. Every dead alien soldier. They were teaching the Vrinthians that Earth would cost them dearly. In her laboratory, Dr. Jiwon had barely slept in months. She worked constantly, studying the alien technology. The crashed ship had given her so much to examine. Strange metals, Unknown power sources, weapons that fired pure energy. She had made progress. Slow, difficult progress. The alien shields worked by creating an energy field. Human weapons could not penetrate it. But Jiwan had discovered something important. The shields had a weakness. They could not block certain electromagnetic frequencies. If she could build a weapon that used those frequencies, they could hurt the aliens. She worked day and night to create a prototype. Her hands shook from exhaustion, but she refused to stop. Every day the aliens ruled Earth was a day too many. Her assistant brought her food she barely ate. Coffee she drank cold. But finally, after months of work, she succeeded. The device was crude and ugly. But when she tested it on a piece of alien shield technology, the shield collapsed. Jiwan wanted to cry with relief. They had a weapon now, a real weapon that could hurt the aliens. That night, Xiong led his team through the ruins toward the alien depot. There were 8 of them. Most were young like him, students, workers, ordinary people who had become fighters. They carried homemade explosives and stolen alien weapons. The depot was guarded by alien soldiers, tall creatures with gray skin and black eyes. They wore armor and carried plasma rifles. Xiong watched them from the shadows. His heart pounded, but his hands were steady. He had done this before. He gave the signal. His team moved silently through the rubble. They planted explosives on the supply trucks. They attached charges to the fuel containers. Then they retreated back into the darkness. Xiong pressed the detonator. The explosions lit up the night. Fire consumed the depot. Alien soldiers ran in confusion. Xiong's team opened fire from multiple positions. The aliens returned fire, but they could not see their attackers in the smoke and darkness. In 10 minutes it was over. The depot was destroyed. 12 alien soldiers were dead. Xiong's team had lost no one. They melted back into the ruins before reinforcements arrived. This was happening everywhere now. Small attacks across the globe. The aliens were bleeding from 1,000 cuts. They could not predict where the next strike would come. They could not catch the fighters who vanished like smoke. Captain Yun had been working on his own project. After the disastrous aerial battles, only a handful of human pilots survived. But they had managed to capture an alien fighter that had crashed. Hyun studied it obsessively. The alien ship was faster than anything humans had built, more agile, more powerful, but it was also complex and difficult to fly. Hyun spent weeks learning its controls. He crashed twice during practice. Broke 3 ribs, but eventually he mastered it. Then he did something crazy. He took the alien fighter up to challenge an enemy patrol. 5 alien ships against his 1 captured craft. They did not recognize him as an enemy at first. By the time they realized, he had already shot down 2 of them. The fight was brutal. The alien pilots were skilled, but Hyun was better. He was fighting for his world, for his dead friends, for everyone who had been killed. That gave him an edge the aliens did not have. Rage, purpose, desperation. When it was over, all 5 alien ships were destroyed. Hyun limped back to base with his fighter damaged and smoking. But he had proven something important. Humans could win in the air if they had the right tools. Minho called a meeting of all resistance leaders. They gathered in the largest underground bunker. Hundreds of faces looked at him. Dirty, tired, but undefeated. He told them about their victories, about Dr. Jiwan's weapon that could break alien shields, about Hyun's success with the captured fighter, about successful raids happening daily across the world. The aliens thought humans would give up, thought they would accept slavery. But they were wrong. Humans adapted. Humans learned. Humans evolved. Minho announced the formation of the Earth Defense Coalition. All resistance groups would now work together, share intelligence, coordinate attacks. They would become a real army again. Not the old kind that had failed. A new kind, one built for this new kind of war. The crowd cheered. It was the first time many had felt hope in months. Ambassador Yuna worked on a different front. She helped evacuate civilians from the occupied cities. She organized hidden refugee camps deep in forests and mountains. She made sure children were fed, that the sick received medicine, that families stayed together. She also tried to gather allies. There were other alien species in the galaxy. Some hated the Vrinthian Empire. If she could contact them, maybe they would help. It was a long shot, but she had to try. Humanity needed every advantage it could get. The breakthrough came during a major attack. The resistance targeted a Vrinthian battlecruiser that was low in orbit. It was repairing damage from a meteor strike. Vulnerable Dr. Jiwan had built dozens of her shield-breaking devices. Human fighters carried them on modified missiles. Hyun led a squadron of pilots and captured alien fighters. Seung and his team prepared to hit the ground forces when the ship fell. Minho coordinated everything from the command center. It was the biggest operation they had ever attempted. If it failed, they would lose their best people. But if it succeeded, they would prove humans could hurt the aliens badly. The attack began at dawn. Human missiles streaked toward the battlecruiser. The aliens activated their shields. But when the missiles hit, G1's devices worked perfectly. The shields flickered and died. Then the real weapons hit. Explosions tore through the ship's hull. Hyun's squadron attacked from above, firing everything they had. The massive ship began to fall, burning and breaking apart. It crashed into the ocean with a sound like thunder. Seung watched from the shore as the ship sank beneath the waves. Alien escape pods launched, but resistance fighters were waiting for them. The victory was complete. A Vrinthian battlecruiser destroyed. Hundreds of alien soldiers dead or captured, and humanity had lost only a handful of fighters. News of the victory spread through the resistance network. People celebrated in the tunnels and hidden camps. For the first time since the invasion, humans had won a major battle. On the alien command ship, High Commander Threx received the report with disbelief. A battlecruiser lost. To primitives, to creatures that should have surrendered months ago. It was impossible. It was humiliating. He ordered harsher measures. More patrols. Stricter controls. Brutal punishment for any human resistance. He would crush these rebels. He would make Earth submit. But in his heart, Threx felt something he had never felt before in 47 conquered worlds. Doubt. These humans were different. They refused to break. They kept fighting even when fighting seemed hopeless. In the underground command center, Minho looked at his team. Ji-won, Hyun, Seung, Yuna, and thousands of others like them. They had started as desperate survivors. Now they were becoming something more. An army. A force. The war was far from over. The aliens still controlled most of Earth. They still had overwhelming force. But the balance had shifted. Humans had learned to fight back. They had tasted victory. And they would never stop fighting until Earth was free again. 1 year after the invasion, everything had changed. The humans who once hid in tunnels now marched in formation. The resistance that once celebrated small victories now planned to retake entire cities. Earth was preparing for its counterattack. Minho stood before a massive wall map showing the whole world. Red zones marked alien control. Blue zones showed human territory. 6 months ago, the map was almost entirely red. Now patches of blue were spreading like a healing wound. He called it Operation Reclamation. The plan was bold and dangerous. Multiple cities would be attacked simultaneously across the globe. The aliens would not know where to send reinforcements. Humanity would use speed, surprise, and their new weapons to take back what was theirs. The first target was Tokyo. The city had been under alien control since the first day. Millions of humans lived there as prisoners, forced to work in factories making supplies for the Vrinthian Empire. Minho would lead the liberation personally. His force consisted of 5,000 fighters. They had been training for months. They carried weapons built from captured alien technology mixed with human engineering. Dr. Jiwan had taught them how to disable the shields, how to hack alien communications, how to turn the enemy's own tools against them. The attack began before sunrise. Human fighters emerged from the tunnels beneath Tokyo. They hit power stations first, cutting electricity to alien command centers. Then they attacked the garrison where alien soldiers were sleeping. The aliens woke to chaos. Explosions everywhere. Humans attacking from underground, from buildings, from the shadows. The Vrinthians had grown comfortable, lazy. They thought Earth was conquered. They were wrong. Minho led his unit through the streets. Alien soldiers fired plasma weapons. Humans fired back with bullets and modified energy weapons. Buildings exploded. Vehicles burned. The city became a battlefield. But this time humans had the advantage. They knew every street, every alley, every building. The aliens were fighting in a maze they did not understand. Human fighters disappeared into structures, fired from windows, vanished before the aliens could respond. By noon, Tokyo belonged to humans again. The alien garrison was destroyed. Their ships had fled or been shot down. Thousands of human prisoners were freed. They poured into the streets, crying and cheering. Across the ocean, Hyun led the aerial assault over Europe. He commanded 50 captured alien fighters flown by human pilots. They had practiced for months learning to fly these strange ships. Now they moved as one unit, fast and deadly. The alien fleet over London did not expect attack. They thought their air superiority was absolute. Hyun's squadron hit them from above, diving out of the clouds. Plasma bolts streaked through the sky. Alien ships exploded one after another. Hyun's cockpit filled with warnings and alerts. Enemy fire hit his ship. Systems failed. But he kept fighting. He was not the scared pilot from a year ago. He had become a warrior, a leader. His people needed him. He destroyed 3 enemy ships before his fighter was too damaged to continue. As he pulled away from the battle, he saw his squadron finishing the fight. Young pilots who had trained under him. They were winning. For the first time since the invasion, humans controlled the skies over a major city. Dr. Ji-won watched the battles from her laboratory. She had built the weapons that made this possible. Shield disruptors, energy weapons, communication jammers. Every victory owed something to her work, but she felt no joy. Only exhaustion and guilt. Her weapons killed efficiently. The alien biosamples she had studied became deadly viruses. She had created tools of death, and they worked too well. She thought about the dead aliens. Did they have families? Did they have children waiting for them to come home? Or were they just soldiers following orders like humans did? Her assistant brought more requests. The military needed stronger weapons, better shields, faster ways to kill. Ji-won wanted to refuse. But every day humans died under alien occupation. Every day Earth remained enslaved. She had no choice but to continue. She went back to work, trying not to think about the cost. Seung had his own mission during Operation Reclamation. While Minho attacked openly, Seung led a small team to infiltrate an alien command center in Beijing. They needed intelligence, battle plans, information about alien weaknesses. Getting inside was difficult. The command center was heavily guarded, but Seung had learned to be patient. His team waited 3 days in the sewers beneath the building, 3 days in darkness and filth, waiting for the right moment. When Operation Reclamation began, the aliens were distracted. Guards rushed to respond to attacks across the city. Seung's team emerged from the sewers and entered the command center through a maintenance tunnel. Inside, they moved silently. Seung had lost count of how many missions like this he had done. He was no longer the scared student who cried in the ruins of his home. War had hardened him, made him cold, efficient. They reached the data center. Seung plugged in a device Ji-won had built. It copied everything. Strategic plans, ship movements, communication codes, weaknesses in their systems. Everything humans needed to win. Alarms started blaring. They had been detected. Seung's team fought their way out. 2 of his people died in the corridors. But they got the data. They escaped into the tunnels with the information that would change the war. Ambassador Yuna achieved a different kind of victory. She had been working for months to contact other alien species. The Vrinthian Empire had many enemies, species they had conquered or threatened. Yuna believed some would help humanity if asked. She was right. A species called the Kelnar made contact. They had fought the Vrinthians for decades. They hated the Empire. When they learned humans were resisting, they were impressed. Humans had lasted longer than most species did. The Kelnar could not send armies. But they sent weapons, technology, medicine. Most importantly, they sent knowledge about Vrinthian tactics and weaknesses. This information was priceless. Yuna also learned something disturbing. The Vrinthian Empire was planning to send more forces to Earth. High Commander Threx had been requesting reinforcements for months. The Empire had finally agreed. A massive fleet was coming. She brought this news to Minho. They stood in the ruins of Tokyo watching humans raise their flag over the liberated city. The moment should have been joyful, but the shadow of the coming threat hung over them. Minho listened to Yuna's report without expression. Then he looked at the flag waving in the wind, at the people celebrating below, at his exhausted soldiers. He said they would worry about the new fleet when it arrived. Today they had won. Today they had proven humans could retake their world. That was enough for now. Over the next month, more cities fell to human forces: Berlin, Mumbai, Sydney, Mexico City. The tide was turning. The aliens were retreating, not defeated yet, but no longer invincible. High Commander Threx watched the reports with growing fury. He had told the Empire that Earth would be easy, that humans would surrender quickly, that this world would become another jewel in the Vrinthian crown. Instead, it had become a nightmare. Humans refused to accept defeat. They learned too quickly, adapted too fast. They turned alien technology against its makers. They fought with a desperation and creativity that Threx had never encountered. The Empire was sending help, but Threx knew his career was over. He had failed. The mighty Vrinthian military had been humiliated by a primitive species. History would remember this disaster. In an underground command center beneath Seoul, Minho gathered his top people. Jiwon, Hyun, Seung, Yuna. They looked tired but determined. They had fought for a year, won victories no one thought possible. But the hardest battle was still ahead. Minho showed them the intelligence Seung had captured. The new Vrinthian fleet was enormous. 300 warships, planet-killing weapons, elite troops, everything the Empire could send to end the human rebellion once and for all. The room was silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They had been fighting a weakened occupation force. Now they would face the full might of an empire that had conquered 47 worlds. Yun spoke first. He said humans had already done the impossible. They had survived when they should have died, fought when they should have surrendered, won when they should have lost. They would find a way to win again, Seung agreed. His voice was hard and cold. The aliens had killed his family, destroyed his world. He would fight them until his last breath. Victory or death, there was no middle ground. Jiwon said she would develop new weapons, stronger ones, deadlier ones, whatever it took to defend Earth, even if it haunted her forever. Yuna promised to get more help from the Kelnar and other species, to prepare civilian evacuations, to make sure humanity survived even if the military was defeated. Minho looked at each of them. These people had become his family. They had suffered together, fought together, bled together. Whatever came next, they would face it as one. He told them to prepare. The Vrinthian Empire wanted to end this war with overwhelming force, but they had forgotten one important fact. Humans had nothing left to lose, and that made them the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy. The sky turned black with ships. 300 alien warships appeared above Earth like a swarm of metal locusts. Each ship was the size of a city. Each one carried weapons that could destroy continents. Colonel Minho Kang stood on the roof of the command center and watched them arrive. His stomach felt heavy. They had just won their greatest victory in Seoul. Now they faced their worst nightmare. The aliens did not waste time with warnings or negotiations. A beam of white light shot down from the largest ship. It hit Australia. The entire continent glowed bright as the sun. Then it was gone, turned to ash. 7 million people died in seconds. Minho felt his legs go weak. He grabbed the railing to steady himself. This was not war. This was extermination. A message came through on every screen and radio that still worked. A tall figure appeared. His armor was black and covered with strange symbols. His voice was cold like ice. He said his name was Warmaster Krell. He said Earth had 24 hours to surrender completely. Every human must lay down weapons and submit to the Vrinthian Empire. If they refused, every city would burn like Australia. Every human would die. There would be no mercy. Minho called an emergency meeting in the underground command center. Every resistance leader came. The room was filled with frightened faces. Some people wanted to surrender. They said fighting was suicide. 7 million dead in one attack. How could they win against that? Others wanted to fight but had no plan. The arguments got loud. People shouted at each other. Fear was spreading like poison. Ambassador Yuna Kim stood up and raised her hand. The room went quiet. She spoke in a calm voice. She said they had a choice to make. They could surrender and become slaves. The aliens would work them to death. Take everything. Destroy their culture. Or they could fight. Maybe they would lose. Maybe they would all die, but at least they would die free. At least they would die fighting for their home. Dr. Jiwon Park was shaking as she stood up. Her face was pale. Her hands trembled. She said she had been working on something terrible. She had discovered a weakness in alien biology. The Vrinthians could not have children naturally. They were sterile. They took genetic material from other species to survive. That was why they conquered worlds. Not for land or resources, for biological material. They were parasites. G1 said she had created a virus, a weapon that attacked Vrinthian DNA. It would spread through their population like wildfire. It would kill them all. Not just the soldiers here. Not just the fleet. Every Vrinthian in the galaxy. Billions of them. Maybe trillions. It would be complete genocide. She looked around the room with tears in her eyes. She said she did not want this. She was a scientist, not a killer. But she saw no other way to save humanity. The room exploded with noise. Half the people said yes, use the virus. The aliens wanted to exterminate humanity. Why not strike first? The other half said no. Genocide was wrong. It did not matter what the aliens did. Humans should be better than that. If they used this weapon, they would be no different from the Vrinthians. They would become monsters. Minho listened to both sides. His head hurt. His heart hurt. He had made hard choices before. Sent soldiers to die. Ordered attacks that killed civilians by accident. But this was different. This was choosing to kill an entire species. Every man, woman, and child. Guilty or innocent. All dead because of one decision. The weight of it felt like it would crush him. Captain Hyun Choi interrupted the debate.
He said he had another idea.
The alien flagship controlled the entire fleet. Its name was Extinction. If they could destroy it, maybe the other ships would retreat. He said his squadron could attack the flagship, draw away its defenses, but someone would need to get inside the ship and plant the virus directly into its ventilation system. From there, it would spread to the whole fleet. Sung Lee stood up immediately. He said he would do it. He was good at infiltration. He had done dozens of impossible missions. This was just one more, but everyone knew the truth. It was a suicide mission. Yun would probably die. Sung would probably die. Most of the pilots would die. They were asking people to sacrifice their lives. And not just to win. To commit genocide, Yuna called for a vote. Only the senior leadership would decide. Use the virus or refuse and face extinction. The room was silent as people voted. The votes were counted. It was tied exactly in half. Yuna held the deciding vote. She looked at each person in the room. At G1 crying quietly. At Young Sung ready to die. At Minho carrying the weight of command. At Hyun, who had already lost so much. She closed her eyes and thought about the 7 million dead in Australia. She thought about the billions already killed. She voted yes, the decision was made. They would use the virus. Ji-won went to her laboratory to prepare it. She worked alone. She did not want anyone to see her crying. Her hands shook as she handled the vials. This tiny container held the power to end an entire species. She thought about all the Vrinthian children who would die. Children who never hurt anyone. Who never chose war. They would die because of her. Because of this virus. She felt sick but kept working. There was no other choice now. By morning the virus was ready. Ji-won gave it to Shung in a small silver container. She could barely look at him. She whispered an apology. Sung took the container and smiled. He said she had nothing to apologize for. She was saving humanity. That was all that mattered. But Ji-won knew better. Some victories cost too much. Some choices could never be forgiven. She would carry this guilt until she died. The mission launched at dawn. Captain Hyun led the Raptor wing into the sky. 100 fighters against 300 warships. It was insane. It was suicide. But they flew anyway. Hyun opened his radio to all pilots. He told them they were about to do something terrible. Something necessary. History would judge them, but they were saving humanity. That had to be enough. He hoped it was enough. They reached the alien fleet in minutes. The ships hung in space like dark stars. Hyun gave the order to attack. His squadron scattered in all directions. They fired missiles at the capital ships. The aliens were surprised at first. Then they launched their own fighters. Thousands of them. The sky filled with plasma fire and explosions. Hyun dodged through the chaos. He saw 3 of his pilots die in the first minute. Then 5 more, then 10. But they kept fighting. Sung flew a stolen alien transport behind the battle. His ship was tagged as friendly by alien systems. The automated defenses let him pass. He docked in the flagship's hangar bay. His heart pounded so hard he thought it would explode. He stepped out wearing stolen alien armor. Soldiers rushed past him toward the battle. Nobody looked at him closely. He moved quickly through the corridors following the map Ji-won gave him. The ventilation hub was deep in the ship. Xiong had to climb down 5 levels. Each level had more guards, more cameras, more danger. He walked with confidence like he belonged there. His hands were sweating inside the armor. Finally, he reached the ventilation room. 2 guards stood at the door. Xiong pulled his rifle and shot them both before they could react. Alarms started blaring immediately. He had maybe 2 minutes before more guards arrived. He ran to the main ventilation shaft. His hands shook as he opened the silver container. The virus looked like green gas. He attached it to the vent system and turned it on. Gas hissed out and disappeared into the ducts. It was done. The virus would spread through the entire ship in minutes, then to other ships when crew members transferred between vessels, then to the Vrinthian homeworld through communications. It would spread everywhere. Kill everyone. Guards burst into the room. Xiong fired back. He hit 2, but there were too many. They surrounded him. He dropped his empty rifle and raised his hands. They were going to capture him, torture him, but then the ship shook violently. Something had hit it hard. The lights went out. Emergency lights flickered on. In the confusion, Xiong ran. He had to escape. Had to get back to Earth. Had to tell them the mission worked. Outside the ship, Hyun made his final decision. Half his squadron was dead. The aliens were winning. But they had bought Xiong enough time. Now Hyun would buy him more. He turned his fighter toward the flagship's bridge. He accelerated to full speed. His wingman shouted at him to stop. But Hyun did not listen. He thought about his family, his friends, his planet. He smiled and whispered a goodbye. Then his fighter crashed into the bridge at full speed. The explosion was massive. The flagship's command center was destroyed instantly. War Master Krell and all his officers died. The ship went dark, dead in space. Xiong felt the impact and knew what happened. Hyun sacrificed himself, bought him a chance to escape. Xiong found an escape pod and launched. He watched the flagship burn as he fell toward Earth. He cried for Hyun, for all the pilots who died, for what they had done. The virus worked fast. Within hours, Vrinthian soldiers on the flagship started dying. The disease spread to other ships through the ventilation systems. Ships tried to quarantine, but it was too late. The virus was in the air, in their blood, in their bodies. One by one, the ships went dark. Some crashed into each other. Some drifted away into space. The mighty fleet was dying. On Earth, people watched the alien fleet die on their screens. They cheered at first. Victory, they won! But as the reports came in, the cheering stopped. The virus was spreading beyond the fleet. The war was over. The alien ships were dead and floating in space. Earth was free. But victory felt empty. Dr. Ji-won Park sat alone in her laboratory staring at her hands. These hands created the virus that killed billions, maybe trillions. She had not slept in 3 days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw dying Vrinthians, heard their screams, felt their pain. She was a scientist. She was supposed to save lives, not end them. 3 months passed. The world tried to rebuild. Cities started clearing rubble. Farms began growing food again. People returned to their homes or what was left of them. But something felt wrong. People celebrated the victory, but nobody felt happy. They had won by becoming killers, by committing genocide. Colonel Minho Kang saw it in people's eyes. Guilt, shame, horror at what they had done. Ji-won made a decision. She locked herself in her laboratory and did not tell anyone what she was doing. She worked day and night, barely ate, barely drank water. She studied the virus she created, studied how it killed, studied Vrinthian biology, and then she did something nobody expected. She created a cure, a way to reverse the damage, a way to save the Vrinthians who were still alive. When she announced her discovery, people were furious. They called her a traitor. They said the Vrinthians deserved to die. They killed 5 billion humans. They destroyed half the planet. Why save them now? Some people threatened to kill her. Others said she should be arrested. But Ji-won did not care. She stood in front of the angry crowd and spoke clearly. She said humans were better than revenge, better than genocide. If they let the Vrinthians die when they could save them, what did that make humans? Monsters, just like their enemy. Minho was the first person to stand beside her. He put his hand on her shoulder and faced the crowd. He said Ji-won was right. They fought for survival. Now they needed to fight for their souls. They needed to prove they were different from the Vrinthians. That humans could choose mercy even after suffering so much. That forgiveness was stronger than hate. One by one, other leaders joined them. Ambassador Yuna Kim, Sung Lee, others who fought in the war. They all agreed. Send the cure. The debate lasted for weeks. Protests filled the streets. Some people wanted mercy. Others wanted revenge. The vote finally happened. By a small margin, humanity chose mercy. They would send the cure to Vrinthia Prime. Ji-won prepared it herself. Her hands did not shake this time. She felt something she had not felt in months. Hope. Maybe they could be better. Maybe this war could end with healing instead of more death. The cure arrived at Vrinthia Prime just in time. Billions of Vrinthians had already died. Their empire was destroyed. Their civilization was broken. But millions were saved. The response came 3 days later. It was a message from the Vrinthian interim government. They thanked humanity. They apologized for the invasion. They said they were wrong. They underestimated humans, not their weapons or technology, their capacity for mercy, for forgiveness. They offered peace, real peace forever. Yuna led the peace negotiations. They met in Seoul, in the building where Minho raised the human flag after liberation. Vrinthian diplomats came to Earth for the first time as friends, not conquerors. They walked through the destroyed streets, saw the mass graves, visited the memorials. They cried. They understood what their people had done, what it cost. The peace treaty took 6 months to write, but both sides wanted it to work. Both sides were tired of death. The treaty said 3 things. First, Vrinthians would help rebuild Earth. They would give technology, resources, labor, everything they had. Second, the Vrinthian Empire would end. No more conquering, no more slavery. Every species they conquered would be free. Third, humans and Vrinthians would share everything. Knowledge, technology, culture. They would learn from each other, build a future together. Both sides signed the treaty. The war was truly over. Young Vrinthians came to Earth as volunteers. They helped clear rubble, built new homes, planted trees. Humans hated them at first, threw stones, shouted curses, blamed them for the war. But these young Vrinthians had nothing to do with the invasion. They were innocent. They just wanted to help, to make things right. Slowly, very slowly, humans began to accept them, began to see them as people, not monsters. Shung became a leader in reconciliation. The young man who lost his entire family, who fought harder than anyone, who helped deliver the weapon that nearly killed all Vrinthians. Now he worked with them, taught them about Earth, learned about their world. People called him a traitor, said he betrayed humanity. But Sung disagreed. He said hate was poison. Revenge would not bring his family back. But building something new might honor their memory, might make their deaths mean something. He became Minister of Interstellar Relations. His job was preventing future wars. He met with ambassadors from dozens of species, negotiated treaties, solved problems before they became conflicts. His greatest achievement was creating the Galactic Reconciliation Council, a place where any species could bring disputes, where talking was the first option, not fighting. Where peace was possible, Minho retired from the military. He was tired, so incredibly tired. He had seen too much war, too much death, lost too many friends. He moved to a small house in the mountains, far from cities, far from people. He wanted quiet, peace, but peace was hard to find. Every night he dreamed about the war, the soldiers he lost, the decisions he made, the virus they used. He woke up sweating and shaking. He started writing, not because he wanted to, because the words would not stay inside. He wrote about everything. The invasion, the fighting, the choices they made, the cost of survival. He called his book The Price of Tomorrow. It became famous across the galaxy, not because it made war look heroic, because it showed the truth. War was ugly, brutal, sometimes necessary, but always terrible, always costly. His message was simple: fight when you must, but never forget what it costs. Never forget the faces of those who die. Ji-won never stopped feeling guilty. She continued working as a scientist but changed her focus. Now she worked on medicine, on healing. She developed treatments for radiation sickness, cures for diseases, ways to regrow damaged organs. She saved millions of lives. But it never felt like enough. Never balanced what she did. She knew it never would. Some choices cannot be unmade. Some guilt cannot be washed away. You just learn to live with it. She won the Nobel Peace Prize for creating the cure that saved the Vrinthians. She almost refused it. How could she win a peace prize for fixing her own mistake? But Una convinced her to accept. Not for herself, for humanity. To show the galaxy that humans could choose mercy, could admit mistakes, could be better than their worst moments. Jiwon accepted. She used all the prize money to build schools on Vrinthia Prime. Schools where young Vrinthians learned about Earth, about peace, about second chances. Una became Secretary General of the United Earth Government. All the nations had finally united. War forced them together. Peace kept them together. She worked every single day, building the future, making sure all the sacrifice meant something. She created the Memorial Foundation. Its purpose was remembering everyone who died. Every human, every Vrinthian, every name recorded, every life honored. 8 billion deaths. The least they could do was remember them all. The memorial in Seoul was massive, a black stone wall that stretched for miles. 5 billion human names, 3 billion Vrinthian names, all carved into the stone. Una visited often. She touched the names. Read them aloud. Strangers and friends, enemies and allies, all dead because of fear and hate. She made a promise to every name. Their deaths would not be meaningless. Humanity would build a better galaxy, a peaceful galaxy, where this never happened again. Captain Hyun Choi was never forgotten. Statues of him stood in every major city on Earth. The young pilot who sacrificed everything, who crashed his fighter into the alien flagship to save Seong, to save Earth. His squadron was rebuilt and named the Choi Wing in his honor. But they were not warriors anymore. They were peacekeepers. They protected diplomats, rescued people from disasters, kept trade routes safe. They carried Hyun's words on every ship. We fight not because we can win, but because we refuse to lose. 20 years after the war, Earth was transformed. Cities had been rebuilt bigger and better than before. Forests grew where bombs once fell. Oceans were clean again. Technology had jumped forward by centuries. Humans traveled faster than light using Vrinthian engines. Vrinthians used human medical science to heal their sick. Other alien species joined the alliance. The galaxy was changing, becoming peaceful, becoming united. The invasion meant to destroy humanity had instead brought dozens of civilizations together. The spaceport in Seoul launched colony ships, thousands of humans leaving Earth to start new lives on distant worlds. Shung stood at the spaceport and watched them go. He was 40 years old now. The scared teenager was gone. He had gray hair and lines on his face, but he also had hope. Hope that these colonists would build something beautiful, something worth all the pain and sacrifice. He thought about his family often. His mother, his father, his little sister. They died in the first attack. Never saw Earth rebuild. Never knew humanity survived. But Sung liked to think they knew somehow, that they were proud. He walked to the memorial wall and found their names. He touched each one gently.